Texas, 1944, a hiss of pipes. Faces stiffen. Then the first drops fall, and the room exhales. They had crossed an ocean with rumors as luggage, expecting the worst when the valves turned. Instead, water, clean, warm, ordinary, fell on shaking hands and closed eyes braced for death. Fear does not leave quickly. It loosens finger by finger. With each breath and each droplet, steam rose. And with it the quiet shock of being treated like a person again. Kindness is not a speech here. It is pressure in a pipe. Arriving on time, no one cheered. They wept softly because relief sometimes sounds like silence. Some waited to be struck. No blow came, only towels, and an orderly line to leave. The rules, not the rumors. Set the day, wash, dress, step back into the light. The guard at the door stood still, distant, a witness rather than a threat. Outside, heat shimmered on wire. Texas felt like another planet after Europe's winter. The brain takes longer to believe than the body. It holds on to terror, but repetition can be merciful. Meals at times, medical checks, mail, and yes, showers. Routine is the quiet edge of dignity. It is boring in a life that was unbearable. These women learned the new map of the day, one small safe square at a time. A rumor can travel across oceans. So can evidence, both asked to be believed. Evidence is heavy. It has weight. Bread, soap, paper, water. The mind kept checking, is there a trick here? There wasn't. There were rules. It takes courage to accept ordinary kindness after extraordinary harm. In this room, victory sounded like plumbing. Not applause. Where fear had prepared them for smoke, steam wrapped them like a blanket. They looked up at the pipes like they were stars, charting a safer sky. A hand brushed a cheek, finding water, not ash. They stepped into sandals, into a hallway, into a new kind of waiting. The air outside struck warm. A fence hummed in the wind. Fear did not end. It was outnumbered by smaller, steadier facts. Clean skin, a dry towel, a nod instead of a shout. No speech could have convinced them as quickly as that first shower. They would write home later, searching for simple words that felt unbelievable. For now they walked quiet, holding themselves together in a new way. The world had been cruel. This place was not gentle, it was governed. Governance can be mercy when it limits what harm is allowed to do. In this camp, the rules carried the day like a stretcher. Slowly, carefully. Steam drifted out the doorway and vanished into prairie air. Terror is loud, dignity is quiet. The quiet began to grow. They would not forget Europe. They would remember Texas. 2. Memory is a ledger. This day marked a credit in a long account. A small one, yes, but small things add up when repeated. The day's map had one true north. Rules kept. The door opened to sun, fences, and schedule. They had been told America was a monster that would devour them whole. Posters showed fangs. Rumors supplied claws. The ocean crossing rattled those stories in the hull. Landfall brought new sounds. Whistles, engines, unfamiliar accents. Trains carried them inland, rails beating a metronome against fear. Texas arrived as a horizon that would not end. Heat turned metal into mirage. Wire hummed like an instrument. The guards were not friendly. They were professional. Between cruelty and care is a broad middle called procedure. Procedure checked their names, their bags, their pulse. A camera flashed. An index card found a file. If the enemy will treat you by the book matters. Barracks were wood and nails and roofs that held. The stove glowed. The bunks were counted. The canteen smelled of coffee, soap, and paper. The prairie pressed close, indifferent and endless. Rumor requires shadows. Texas stood in the sun. A day's routine wrote itself on chalkboards and clipboards. The shock was not the fence. It was the ordinariness inside it. Even mercy can feel like an ambush when you expect pain. They looked for the trap door. They found a schedule. Rumors have no paperwork. Procedure does. Over days, the mind revised its drawings. Less monster, more map. The enemy was not kind. The enemy was careful. Care enforced is a strange salvation. Ordinary Texas life pressed at the fence. Windmills, cattle, dust. It was possible to imagine surviving here. That, too, was a shock. In time, even shock becomes habit. The train had delivered them to a different story than promised. It was not a pleasant story. It was not a nightmare. It was a system designed to hold people without breaking them. A strange mercy, but a mercy. They learned the names of the days. Again, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all survivable. The sun set on counted heads and quiet courtyards. Darkness brought crickets, towers, and sleep. The roomers fell asleep last. In the morning, they were weaker. The prairie kept breathing. So did they. Not belief yet, but less disbelief. Not trust yet, but fewer flinches. The ledger shifted by degrees. A day survived as evidence. Evidence repeated becomes truth. Not all fences held soldiers. Some held families together, inside the wire. Crystal City was a controlled town. Cottages, a school bell, a clinic. Children learned to read beside a fence line they could not cross. Mothers hung laundry under watchtowers softened by distance. The Red Cross came with clipboards and questions. The answers were measured like rations. Mail arrived, stamped and opened, but it arrived. Parcels carried a different temperature, warmth from far away. A family inside a fence learns new definitions of home. A bed, a stove, a doctor down the path. Safety costs movement. Movement buys uncertainty. Here, safety won the bargain. Most days. The school bell made a sound the war could not flatten. A child's handwriting is an argument for the future. The fence argued back with barbs and rules. Between them hung a fragile truce called routine. The clinic held fevers down and worry at bay. Mothers counted days like stitches. Night fell on cottages that looked almost peaceful. Peace is how you behave around fear, not its absence. In the mess hall, ladles measured out fairness. In the yard, eyes measured out distance. The watchtower never blinked. The children did, and their world stayed together. A letter read aloud could widen a small room. A photograph placed on a shelf could hold a city in its frame. Memory worked hard here and hope harder. The fence was not gentle. The life inside it tried to be. In time, the map of Crystal City fit in a child's head like a song. Verse 1, cottage to school. Verse 2, school to mess. The chorus, stay together. The bridge, one day. We will walk farther than this. Mothers kept that bridge steady with stories and schedules. Dignity does not erase fences. It keeps them from entering the soul. Crystal City practiced that every hour. The war could not hear the school bell from here. The bell rang anyway. Some sounds resist history. A bedtime song, a whispered prayer, a gate that stayed shut. Tomorrow's map was already drawn. It would be the same. That was the point. The point was survival with shape. Shape becomes strength when practiced. The cottages slept. The tower watched. Morning would open like a careful hand. Work filled the hours and bent the body toward evening. Fields needed hands more than names. Under the rules, labor paid, scrip, not cash, but still a wage. 80 cents could buy a small decision, soap, a pencil, a cigarette. Choice, even tiny, rest the mind. Potatoes lifted from dust into sacks. Rows scored straight as lines on paper. Sun wrote itself into the neck, the hands, the hat's sweatband. Supervision stayed present, steady, unhurried. The day's ledger counted hours and heads, not victories. In the canteen, shelves offered ordinary temptations. The price card was a kind of permission. Soap means future days. Paper means letters. Cigarettes mean a minute reclaimed from worry. Work stitched the fence to the land, and the land to the day. Concrete rose into grain towers, slow as patience. Wheelbarrows sang a rough tune. Lunch came in tins and steam. Shade gathered under a tree like a meeting that never ended. Then back to rows, to measures, to a tired that felt honest. In the ledger, names became numbers. In the canteen, numbers bought names back. Evening returned them to barracks, to stoves, to stitched boots. A coin of quiet in the palm before lights out. Labor is not kindness, but fairness can soften its edges. The rules allowed work. The rules required pay. The rules kept did their slow good. Outside the fence, a rancher nodded once, then went back to his day. Distance can hold respect if both sides agree. The sun finally let go. Night held sore muscles like a lullaby with calluses. Tomorrow would ask for the same. They would answer with the same. The fence slept standing up. Dreams loosened their boots and cooled their feet. Somewhere, grain settled with a long, contented sigh. In the canteen till, coins nested like birds. The ledger closed its eyes. The stoves clicked softly to black. A final whisper, then quiet. Work had made a path through the day. The path led to a bed that did not leak. That is not everything. It is not nothing. It is enough to sleep, enough to wake, enough to endure, enough to remember that rules can hold. The canteen buzzed with ceiling fan and talked too low to carry. A soldier slid a bottle across wood, cold sweating down its ribs. It was such a small gesture it felt impossible. Expect chains, receive a drink. The mind stumbles on that step. She touched the glass like it might cut or vanish. The cap clicked free, sharp as a new thought. The first sip startled the teeth with cold. Sweetness arrived like a rumor of peace. Across the counter, no speeches, only a nod. Dignity can be given as easily as a bottle. The room did not change, she did. For a moment, enemy meant neighbor with a spare coin. The war did not end. A wall in her ended. Relief can taste like caramel and bubbles. She laughed, surprised at the sound. The fan kept turning, unimpressed by miracles. Miracles prefer small rooms and no witnesses. The bottle ringed the wood and marked the day. She would tell the story later and not be believed. Then she would tell it again and again until it became true in the hearing. Kindness is a strategy, some said. Maybe strategy can still be kind. The bottle emptied. The feeling did not. She wiped a finger through the condensation like a child. On the far wall, a notice reminded everyone of the rules. The rules made this moment possible. The rules also kept hands apart that wanted to meet. It is complicated to be human and regulated. She set the bottle down with care, like a borrowed thing. The soldier watched the door, not her. They shared a country for the length of a drink. It was enough to redraw a border inside. Outside, heat rubbed the fence like a cat. Inside, someone laughed again, then stopped, surprised. The cap spun to a stop. So did a rumor. The fan kept time for a new story. A simple one. Today I was seen. The door opened. The day continued. The bottle's ring faded from the wood, not the memory. Not a feast. Not a speech, a drink. The smallest bridge is still a bridge. She crossed it and kept walking. The counter waited for the next ordinary miracle. Sometimes victory is just this simple. War makes monsters. Rules try to make boundaries around them. Humane treatment is not charity, it is law. The law requires housing, care, mail, work within limits. It requires protection from violence and spectacle. The point is not to make enemies comfortable. It is to remain human. In Texas, the rules were the spine of every day. A check, a stamp, a count. The machinery of restraint worked without flourish. Critics called it softness. Practitioners called it policy. Prisoners called it survivable. The Red Cross called it inspected. The mail called it delivered. The infirmary called it enough. Enough is what you can build a future from. A posted rule can be a shield if someone stands behind it. Here someone did. It matters who enforces mercy. It mattered that enforcement was consistent, not random. Randomness is the enemy of dignity. In the ledger of treatment, consistency is the rarest coin. It bought down fear quarter by quarter, not to zero, to livable. The fence remained. So did the rules that softened it. This is not a celebration. It is an accounting. Where the law held, people held together. Where it slipped, harm returned quickly. This story chooses the places where it held, because survival deserves its own chapter. And because restraint in war is a victory few will cheer. But history can count quiet victories too. They add up to futures, and to letters that say, I am all right, and to hands that stop shaking sooner each morning, and to nights that end in sleep, not staring. The rules did not love anyone. They allowed love to continue. That is their quiet brilliance, and their claim on our memory. We remember harm loudly. We must remember restraint too. Otherwise, we will not know what to repeat. Repeat this. Count, check, care, pay, protect. Repeat this. Do not fail the rules when the rules are all that hold. In Texas, the rules held often enough to matter, often enough to write this chapter, often enough to change lives that crossed oceans. Night brought music into the gaps the day left. A harmonica at the barracks door found its note. Voices joined softly, not to wake the towers. Evenings stitched people back into themselves. Holidays attempted something braver, joy, supervised. Paper chains curled like smiles along the wall. A small tree admitted light to the room. Ladles found their rhythm again. Someone slipped a hand-drawn card across a table. Rules watched from the doorway and did not object. Outside, frost taught the fence a brighter glitter. Inside, breath made halos in the lamplight. Memory sharpened every kindness into a keepsake. Music made the room larger than its walls. The chorus said, "Not yet, not gone, still here." Night said, "Rest. The watch is mine." Faces softened back toward childhood for a verse. Then the guard cleared his throat, and the moment stood at attention. Joy can live inside orders if it promises to behave. It nodded and stayed. A star showed itself above barracks roofs, unafraid. Not a sign. A star. Enough. They slept with music still in their mouths. In the morning, work would come and ask its price. They would pay and keep some change. The change was song. The change was laughter folded small in a pocket. The change was a memory of light on paper chains. The season returned dignity, even checked at the door. The door returned it after inspection. Joy declared nothing. It simply happened and was counted. The ledger did not know how to hold it. They held it themselves. Some things survive better that way. The tower light made its circle and left them be. The wind wrote the fence a lullaby. Tomorrow would be ordinary again. Tonight did not apologize for being better. They would remember this without exaggeration. You do not have to gild a true mercy. You only have to let it happen, and count it with the others, and tell it later so someone believes it, and sleep, and wake. A notice on the board insisted on distance in official words. Human beings read it and tried to obey. War ends in pieces. Rules loosen in threads. A smile traveled farther than policy allowed. A conversation stayed within reach but not touch. Supervision hovered like punctuation. People still found ways to be people. After victory, the air changed pressure. The same fence felt thinner. The same distance felt less hostile. Futures were being negotiated with glances and care. The rules knew and pretended not to sometimes. Policy is a map. Hearts walk off-road. The guard's eyes softened at the edge. The day remained on schedule anyway. Somewhere else, papers would be signed and visas stamped. Here, a silence lasted a second too long and meant everything. There is danger in this softness. There is also proof of what survives a war. Not victory parades, not speeches, recognition. The notice board remained in place, weeds curling at its feet. The ink paled in the sun. The tower light blinked the same blink as yesterday. The crack in the wall did not widen into scandal here. It widened into a path some would follow later, far from this fence. Rings would be exchanged in other countries, other years. Today, two people learned each other's names carefully and spelled them correctly later in a letter. Some rules can coexist with tenderness if watched. The watch did not blink. The tenderness learned to move slowly. It survived even so. This, too, is part of the record. Not official, true. The board took down yesterday's notice and put up today's. The meaning stayed. So did the people. So did their careful distance. The wind reached through the wire, which is allowed. They breathed it in together, which is allowed, and then went on with their day, which was required. The chapter closes without fireworks. It closes with restraint again, and the admission that restraint sometimes lets tenderness live. Trains returned to the platform like punctuation marks. Bags were lighter than what hearts carried out. Papers rustled. Names were called. Goodbyes lived in eyes more than words. Wheels started their slow, inevitable sentence. Texas slid away in windows and memory. The prairie kept breathing without them. The fence stayed, bearing nobody's weight. Letters would follow different paths now. Germany received them like winter receives sun. Streets held scars the mail could not bandage. Parcels opened to reveal a different temperature. Inside, coffee, soap, fabric, proof of a promise kept. The past did not heal. The future twitched. Embraces measured loss and found room anyway. Texas turned into a story told at tables. The story sounded unlikely and tasted true. We were treated, someone would say, as if rules mattered. This does not erase anything. It adds something back that had been taken. Belief in the possible. The train carried them to ruins and reunions. Their faces held both maps at once. Texas appeared in their lives now as caution and comfort. Caution, fences can be humane and still fences. Comfort, enemies can keep their word. The letters said all this badly and well as letters do. The ink learned to carry complicated weight. The postmark held the date of a changed mind. The platform back in Texas cleared its throat and awaited new names. The tower light blinked, untroubled by endings. Stories migrate like birds and return in spring as something else. A woman touched a fence post in memory and felt only wood. Departure can be a kindness if arrival is possible. Arrival can be a grief if what was lost says its own name. Both can be true and were. The letters folded into drawers and were kept like talismans. This is how you save a small light. This is how it saves you back. The last train's echo thinned and left an ordinary night. Ordinary is not an insult in history. It is a hard-won prize. Count it, keep it, pass it on in envelopes and voices. Let it be believed. The past leaves footprints if someone draws a circle around them. Camp markers speak when the wind reads them out loud. Exhibits lift objects into sentences. Photographs hold faces steady for our second look. A drained foundation outlines a vanished room. Panels arrange dates into a path we can walk. A memorial is the opposite of forgetting. It is scheduled remembering. We come, we listen, we leave changed by a little. The land has healed mostly. The story has not entirely. It asks us to be careful with it. Archives hold the paper breath of 1,000 days. Cotton gloves and quiet voices do their work. Oral histories loan us someone else's eyes. We pay them back with attention. The fence line is a trail now, edged by grass and signage. A child runs where a child once waited. That is not irony. It is success. The watchtower is a photograph in a frame. It still watches. We watch back differently. Memory is not a museum. It is a tool. We use it to build better fences or none at all. We use it to decide which rules to keep ready. These panels argue for restraint as policy, not mood. They argue for paperwork that protects, not excuses. They argue that ordinary kindness is not naive. It is maintenance on our shared machine. The land nods indifferent and approving. The sky supplies the same light as then. We try to be worthy of it. We count quiet victories with guided tours and field trips. We let children ask questions that bother us properly. We avoid easy answers and keep the complicated ones working. The past prefers to be seen from more than one angle. Walk the perimeter clockwise, then again counter. Different truths step forward in different light. Leave the place better than you found it. Informed. Leave with a name you did not know when you arrived. Say it out loud once in the car. Take its carefulness with you. Not as guilt. As equipment. You will need it. The world always does. The panel text will fade in sun if not tended. So will we. Tend both. Return to the hiss of pipes and the lift of breath. Remember how terror loosened when water arrived. Remember that no speech could have done this as quickly. The rules turned on a valve and kept a promise. Humane treatment did not end the war. It ended a rumor where it mattered, in a human body. War will always tempt us to be efficient with cruelty. Restraint is the harder technology. It requires schedules, inspections, pay, mail, medicine, witnesses. It requires people who keep their faces calm and their hands steady. In Texas, enough of that happened to change minds across oceans. This does not absolve. It accounts. It adds up small mercies until they weigh something real. It invites us to repeat what worked precisely. Count, check, protect, pay, deliver, inspect. Do not improvise your humanity. Standardize it. Then let kindness occur inside the safety that creates. A bottle across a counter. A towel at the door. A letter that arrives. A song at night. These are not decorations. They are proof. Proof that an enemy kept a promise under pressure. Proof that rules can win smaller wars inside larger ones. Proof that some victories require no parades. Leave this story and keep its equipment. When a rumor approaches, answer with procedure. When fear arrives, answer with schedules and care. When cruelty suggests speed, choose the slower fix. Turn the valve that delivers ordinary kindness. Watch fear loosen its grip again. This is how we will be remembered when someone writes a panel. Not as saints, as custodians. Of rules, of care, of each other. The prairie will keep breathing without us. The sky will lend its light to someone else's day. Let them inherit equipment that works. Let them inherit rumors that fail quickly. Let them inherit panels that tell true complicated things, and showers that always turn on to water. This is not a grand ending. It is a promise to maintain. Maintain it, count it, pass it on. Fade to a field and its wind. Fade to black, with the quiet victory still audible.